This is our fourth program of the year so far, and many of you may have attended our program last week at the New York Stock Exchange, which was a sold-out program. And on today's webinar, we have 25 alumni of the Young Leaders Program, and it's really great to have everyone here. As many of you know, the mission of the American Swiss Foundation is to connect Americans and Swiss. And that's in part because of the really close relationship between America and Switzerland. And as many folks know, Switzerland is now number 6 in direct investment in the United States. And largely that's driven by Switzerland's heavy focus on innovation and tech investing. And today's program, we're going to hear from 3 alumni of our Young Leaders Conference on a topic that many of us care about, which is scaling tech businesses. And we're going to first hear from McKnight, who is a general manager of biosecurity at Ginkgo Bioworks, which is an American biotech company based in Boston, founded in 2008 by 5 scientists from MIT. Matt is a 2014 young leader. He has an MBA from Harvard Business School, an MPP from the Harvard Kennedy School, and a BA from Dartmouth. And he started his career in the U.S. Marine Corps. We'll also hear from Adam Jones. He is chief of staff of Pi Insurance, which is involved in making workers' compensation insurance affordable and easy for small businesses across the U.S. He was an officer in the U.S. Navy in Japan, Iraq, and at the Pentagon, as well as in the White House. He is a graduate of the Naval Academy. He has a master's at Johns Hopkins and an MBA from Harvard Business School, and he was a young leader in the class of 2019. And finally, Judith Häberli will be our moderator. She is a member of our most recent Young Leaders class. She is the co-founder and CEO of Urban Connect, which is an urban mobility platform for companies. She's based in Switzerland. She works for companies such as Zurich, Roche, IBM, and is helping them access their shared mobility platforms. Judith holds a BA from the University of Zurich. And we have really 3 really distinguished and incredibly well credentialed young leaders, and look forward to the program. Judith, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bob, for this nice introduction of all of us. In order to break the ice a little bit at the beginning and for the audience to get to know both Adam and Matt, I will start with a very personal question, which is like, Adam, tell us a little bit about yourself, and it would be really nice if you could share what really motivates you at work.
Sure, thank you for the question, Judith. So about me, I think I've always been attracted to the biggest problems where I thought I could have the biggest impact. And that's why I joined the Navy and served in Japan, Iraq, the Pentagon, and White House. While serving, I came to appreciate the strong connections between economic security and national security, and economic deprivation and violence or lawlessness. And that led me to believe I could have a bigger impact in the private sector. To make a long story short, I'm now in entrepreneurship. I've worked at an early stage technology company. And now I work at a growth stage technology company. What gets me the most excited about going to work, Pi is focused on small business insurance, making it more affordable and easy as pie, hence the name. Prior to joining the company, I didn't think much about insurance. I had a few great conversations with my Young Leaders classmates on all of our bus trips around Switzerland. But what really got me excited about the company, and still excites me today, I took a walk around my neighborhood and spoke to all of the small business owners in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, the Mexican shop proprietor, the bodega owner, the barber, and a few themes emerged for me. One is that every small business, and there's 32 million of them in the United States, is a manifestation of somebody's dream. And that dream may be different for different people. It could be being one's own boss. It could be leaving a legacy for kids or offering a service to locals in their neighborhood. But they're all dreams. And then the second thing is that nobody got into being an entrepreneur or a small business owner because they wanted to deal with the hassle and expense of insurance. And it's a major problem. Everybody complained about it. And I thought, wow, if I could join a company where we help them save money and save from the hassle and the burden of filling out reams of paperwork to take out small business insurance. We could allow them to focus on what they love doing most, which is building their small businesses. And that's something that gets me really excited every day.
That's wonderful, Adam. And it's very inspiring. And as a founder of a still rather small company, I really appreciate every company who also thinks of the smaller size companies. Matthew, can I ask you what motivates you most, and also a little bit about your past? And as Adam has already shared quite a bit of what Pi does really well, it would be wonderful if you also share what Ginkgo is really, really good at.
Yeah, thank you. And it's really great to be here. I think a lot of what Adam said is similar to what drives me and how I've kind of found a path to where I am today. But also, frankly, it was one of the things that was such a common theme from our young leaders class in 2014. There's people seeking to do useful things in the world, right? And so my quick background is in college, I came into freshman year thinking I was going to be an engineer, and then started taking math classes. And in the first math class, they said you're going to have to do a problem set every single night. And then I went to my history class, and they said you have to write one paper a term. And so I quickly became a history major. When you become a history major, you start looking back throughout a period of time. And I graduated in 2004, right at the height of the Iraq War. And you see that different people have chosen over different periods of history by kind of twist of fate to serve in conflict in one way or another, and to serve the things they believe in. And so for me, it was just a very important thing, having a great education to go and have a piece of service like many others in many places have throughout history. And that really translated to kind of a view that we have a very short time on this planet. We should try to do important things with the time we have. And so fast forward, I was lucky enough to come across this company, Ginkgo Bioworks. And back to the engineering point, Ginkgo Bioworks is a synthetic biology, engineering of biology company. So the premise of Ginkgo Bioworks is that just like the early 20th century was defined by chemistry going from bench science into an engineerable discipline, and the mid-century was physics going from bench theoretical physics into an engineerable discipline, and so much economic output came from those two things. The biology is on the cusp of going from experimental science. Over the past 40 years, we've kind of started to figure out that cells are manufacturing platforms, and they run on digital code in the form of DNA. And I kind of stumbled across this company, Ginkgo, whose vision and mission was to make biology easier to engineer for all things. Thinking about a physical goods revolution on this planet, just like computers created an information goods revolution. If we can program cells to make amazing products, not just medicines, but food and otherwise, then we can drive a physical goods revolution. And this happened to be a little company out in the seaport in Boston, where I was living. And it just captured me, right? So this century that we see in front of us, so many amazing technological advances. From our perspective, and we're certainly biased, the idea of programming biology to make things is going to be the defining feature of the next 50 or 100 years. So I joined Ginkgo for that because it felt like a big mission to go do, and right back to the roots of engineering without having to do all the problem sets. But what you realize within that is you've got to find inside of the businesses that you join or create or scale, you've got to find your own place to deploy your passion. And for me, over the last 3 years, we've built a biosecurity business. So if you think about the idea of computers, right? One, there's the programming of computers. And then back when computers became a thing, some people said, let's take the software engineering that we have to make amazing applications and let's make security tools as well. And that's where the cybersecurity industry came from. So inside of Ginkgo, we're doing two things: make amazing products. And then over the last 3 years in response to COVID, but now going forward, we've built a business that I run today that is about taking the modern tools of biotechnology and pointing them at dangerous biology or biological threats. And so to me, finding that passion inside of what was already a scaling startup has been really powerful. And it's something that gets me fired up every day, trying to figure out how do we build the tools so that something like COVID or something worse never happens again. And we've been able to build that over the last 3 years, really quickly in the context of another business, Ginkgo programming cells, that's been growing very quickly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt. So before, most of the audience that dialed in today really wants to understand, like, how is it to scale tech companies? So before we dive into that, I just want to have like a little short anecdote or vivid memory of your Young Leaders Conference. Can you remember something that like you will never forget in your life?
I got
Matt?
one. Yeah,
good,
no,
go.
totally. So my favorite moment, and I've always like loved airplanes. I've always been a nerd for airplanes, but touring the Zurich airport was very, very cool, getting the behind the scenes look. And there's a connection to it because today one of our major biosecurity products is for the US CDC in many countries around the world. What we do today is actually when airplanes land at airports, we have a special device that we take wastewater off of the airplanes. It is as disgusting as it sounds. And we quickly put that through a network to do genomic sequencing of SARS-CoV-2 variants, as well as flu variants and other things, to look for what's coming across borders. So our teams spend lots of time understanding the operations of airports now, and I always reflect back to that very cool experience walking through and seeing how Zurich runs, and I've been there many, many times since. So it's always fun to know what's behind the scenes.
Thank you so much. Adam.
Yeah, many fun memories of our trip, and I think of it quite often whenever I really hear the word Switzerland or Europe. And I think I appreciated the trip because, one, it deepened my knowledge of the inner workings of the Swiss government and Swiss industry. Two, I really benefited from the perspectives of all of my young leaders colleagues and how they think about problems of importance to the world. But three, I think it really made some strong lifelong friendships. I know some of my classmates are on this call today, and I've seen them many times since. If I were to pick one vivid memory, it was our closing party, which I think went essentially until the buses came at 5 a.m. And people were giving awards out to each other for various silly things. One person put a rap skit together to summarize the whole week, and it's just a lot of fun and a great ending to the week.
Wonderful, thank you, Adam. If I might share as a moderator, my most vivid memory, and it's only half a year, not even half a year ago, but we went to Mount Rigi on the day off, like where there was no formal program, and after walking down, we all went to the sauna. And it's very normal for us Swiss people to go to mixed saunas, but it was very unusual for our American friends. So the reaction will always stay with me. And I can no longer go to a sauna without thinking of all my American friends. So now let's go to the main part. And I would go straight to you, Matt, again. You already shared quite a bit about when you joined Ginkgo, and also the fact that you then basically build this whole this whole new branch of Ginkgo afterwards. And so it would be really interesting to understand from your side, like, how was that to kind of like build something from scratch within an organization? And as far as I understand, you're now over 200 people. The last time we spoke, you were in Doha, so I assume you're a global company. How was that, building something from scratch?
Yeah, it's so neat. I feel incredibly fortunate to be in an environment like Ginkgo, to be able to have built a company surrounded by people who had been building a company for 11 years. So there's a lot. It's like one of those unique things where you get to have guidance, partnership, mentorship from people who've learned a lot about what it takes to scale, and then had also spent many years on the biotech side of Ginkgo, or the cell programming side of Ginkgo, before building biosecurity. I think the other piece that has been interesting is we did this like a lot of people did, and then there's an interesting topic to dig into, like how did people build businesses during COVID, right? So we built the first major challenge for us was we were building a nationwide business to serve every community in America with large scale testing technologies, not to test if you had symptoms, but to test as like a radar system. Our biggest program was testing in school classrooms every week to look for outbreaks, so you could them early, so you could keep kids in school, but maybe shut a classroom down or take individuals out instead of the whole school. And so figuring out from scratch how to build a business remotely, and then what are the lessons learned as we transfer into a hybrid or non-remote world, and then also doing that with a view towards building to scale from the beginning, but knowing that the actual product had to be very specific for a place like a school classroom. And so those were unique challenges that were so different than the challenges of scaling Ginkgo. So we were able to draw on a lot of those lessons from Ginkgo, but also had to, design from the beginning. I think my big takeaway on the moment that was, we had massive demand for, remember how massive the demand was for testing and, the ability to know if there was infection somewhere or not. Massive demand to get kids back into classrooms, but we had to, but there's no killer app. There's no good product for it. And so the first challenge was looking at a world of like massive demand and knowing it existed there and that no one had answered the question, and then being really iterative, because there's always ideas, but really iterative in figuring out what the product was. And then once you thought you had it, and this is what our teams did really well, make a bet and go, and then watch, and then figure out the second challenge is when it fits, how do you scale into like delivering it? But that was like a really interesting moment. And I think there's a lot of industries where this plays out, where you have like, you can see massive demand, but no one is really real. And Adam, I think it's probably very similar to like massive demand for small business loans from people that are unbanked or less banked. And then like, what's the product fit, right? And so that's a very unique early moment in any of these things, if you can put those two together.
Thank you, Matt. And one question from the audience that we got in, and I think that would be a nice follow-up for here, is like, how did you ensure the knowledge transfer during the growth time? Like when you have such a high growth over such a short period, you have to build a product, you have high demand. How do you make sure that your newly onboarded staff actually knows what's going on?
Adam, you want to take that one? I can come back to it.
Sure, that's a fantastic question. First, I think it's important to note that everybody needs to be aligned on the mission of the company. And this is something that I'm sure resonates with Matt. This is a lesson I took away in the military. In the military, you assume in battle, you're going to lose people. And so everybody needs to be familiar with the commander's intent. And so if you talk to any of the 450 pioneers of Pi, they can tell you what our mission is, who our customer is, what our focus is. And that's all meant to set up rapid distributed decision-making and independent action. So that's the first thing. Everybody has the mission in the back of their mind, and they know what the target is that we're shooting for. In terms of knowledge transfer, that's something we grapple with every day, because we're in a complex industry, and as we grow, we're an increasingly complex business. And so it is incumbent upon us to carve out time in our calendars for proper reflection. A lot of people act, they learn, but they don't actually take the time to reflect and share lessons learned. What went well, what went poorly, how should we pivot? And so we make sure that whenever we run experiments, whenever we launch new products, try new initiatives, try new distribution channels, try new pricing techniques, that we gather after a certain period of time to discuss lessons learned, align on how we're going to either build on that or change, and make sure that we're all operating in unison towards this common goal that we've set out for ourselves.
Yeah, I would just add on, I think I would agree with all of that. I think something that's very hard to do is what you said first, Adam, which is like make sure everybody understands the mission, can articulate it, and understands who the customer is, especially when you're iterating on products so much, because people are looking for new opportunities, they're looking to grow, so you're very often distracted, right? I think it's like, John, one of the major concepts that's always resonated with me is the best product people are the ones that ignore the most things, right? Because there's very much distraction when you're trying to figure out a fit. As it relates to like, how do you then take and communicate? I think one of the things that we found has been an interesting transition. Remember when we were all in our houses, we had massive synchronicity of communications at all times. It was unhealthy probably, but like, we were all watching Slack. We're all on, Zoom. Nobody has anything else going. You're like there. And so there was a lot of information transfer on a very flat basis. It was a very unique moment. So what we've tried to do as we've pivoted is take some lessons, again, Adam, I think using the military analogy, take some lessons from like the special operations communities, where it's hire great people, empower them with incredible communication tools, and then decentralize until you're uncomfortable, and then decentralize a little bit more. That only works if you're doing what Adam said, and you're communicating mission, you're communicating who the customer is, and you're communicating essentially intent of the business. But then if you build that infrastructure to say, great people, continually train them, continually put them in the right places, communications, integration at all times, and then trust them. And that, I think that is a superpower of organizations that can move really, really fast.
And so in case there's anyone in the audience who is thinking of founding their own company or maybe joining a young company, like, are there any tools or methods that you I mean, you don't have to explain them in all length, but maybe point to or name some that you feel like they really work very well?
Adam?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's many. And one thing that we talked about in preparing for this call, Judith, as you may recall, is maybe a different level of risk tolerance between Americans and Swiss, and concept of failure and fear of failure. And this is all to say that I think the first step is going for it, taking that leap. One thing that I always advise people to do is kind of get out of the here and now and zoom out and think about their life in a much broader span than the next 6 to 12 months. And if, on your deathbed, what is the bigger fear for you? Is it that you started a business and it didn't go so well and you failed and you moved on? Or is it that you were so afraid to try, you never did it, and you'll never know what could have happened? And if it's that latter, I would say you should go for it. There will be no perfect time. So go for it. I think my biggest piece of advice, though, and this is related to something that Matt said earlier, is product market fit is everything, right? Without that, you've really got no company. And so get out there, speak with your customers, see how they're using your product, take their feedback, continuously iterate until you have something that your customers can't live without. And the biggest indicator that you found that product or service that they can't live without is revenue, right? When people start buying your product and you're seeing those revenue numbers tick up every month, you'll know that you have product market fit, and you can then think about how to scale up from there in a profitable manner.
Very practically, I've watched people join businesses that don't have the collaboration tool, the very practical tools, like as much as they can, you have to build structures to maintain them. I mean, our greatest tools are Confluence and Slack. That's it. Like, those are incredible collaboration tools if used appropriately. I know it's a very tactical answer, but those are tools that I think have unlocked massive efficiency in organizations, and there are still many organizations that don't use them. And you note a different pace. And like, definitely Zoom and definitely not Teams, probably, like, just as a side note, at least right now. That's a joke, but anybody.
Okay. I love technical advice.
If I could add one more thing, Judith, building a business can be hard, but conceptually it's very simple. At all stages, you really only need 3 things. You need the idea, the people to execute on that idea, and the capital to make the whole thing go. And if you can find 2 of those, you can find the third.
I agree with that. Very nice. So we have like 2 minutes left. And I really like that you already gave so much inspiration to our audience. Can you share in 1 minute each one of your most proud of moment within your company now? And maybe it can be a big challenge that you faced and you overcome, or a mission that you brought to your team, or a new product that you launched. Adam, can you go ahead?
Sure. So personally, as in regards to my current company, I think the proudest moment for me is the announcement of our Series D. It was the largest insurtech round in North America last year. We raised north of $300 million, and that's critical for executing on our strategy. And it's near and dear to me because it's something that I led. In fact, I was actually hoping to see Bob on the other side of the table at some point, because Sullivan and Cromwell was representing one of our investors. From a company standpoint, the thing that I'm most excited about is the launch of our new product, commercial auto insurance. And we're doing that in conjunction with Ford. And the reason that I'm really excited about this launch and this new partnership with Ford is that it has the potential to help us move up the value chain from protection to prevention, where we'll have enough data where we can build a product that actually helps people avoid getting in accidents in the first place.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mine is, I'll refer back to something I mentioned. So in the summer of 2021, right? So this is time when we knew we had to get, wherever you lived in the United States in particular, we had to get kids back into classrooms. And it was such a tumultuous time, so many different opinions, approaches, and feelings on the matter. And one of the things that we felt really deeply about was it did not, like, technology and systems and innovation were such that we did not have to have a situation where either you just said, we don't care, we're sending our kids back into the classroom and people are going to get sick, or no, we're going to keep our kids at home. That's the only way until this is over. And there had to be a middle ground. We spent so much time, fancy technology, basic technology, and we finally settled on this product that was very, very simple. You put every kids down to kindergartners take a quick swab once a week, and they put it into a tube with their whole class. Anonymous, easy, cheap. And then you build a network of laboratories around the country that could test very close to the schools to make it very quick to get the results. And we thought it was working. And then in the summer of 2021, the Biden administration had passed the American Rescue Plan, and something like 15 states, not all of ours, decided they were going to do massive scale programs. And we ended up at one point running 11 statewide programs to test kids in classrooms. And we had to go from essentially zero testing with a system designed to scale to thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of schools across the country using it every week to keep their kids in classrooms. And that happened when school started over the course of like a 4-week period. And so to be involved in that, to be able to go from zero to supporting kids back in classrooms, it was just like it's brutal, very, like, one of those moments of scaling. It was just like a really powerful time. You knew what you were doing was really important. So burning every day down was like not a hard thing at all. So that was a really proud moment of like the mid-pandemic response for our team.
Thank you both so much. I can see both of you are changing people's lives, parents and kids and teachers, and then also small business owners. So wonderful. Thank you for all of that. I'm handing back to Bob now.
Yes, thank you so much, Judith, Adam, Matthew. Love the plug for my law firm. We're always happy to do deals, and a great program. And I wish everyone a really fabulous rest of the day, and look forward to seeing you all again soon. So thank you all so much for tuning in. Bye.